Welcome, Aditya. Aditya Anupam from Georgia Tech is going to present responsible research and innovation. This is the topic of his talk. Welcome, and the stage is yours, Aditya.
Thank you, Alif. And thank you all for a great talk and presentation so far. I'm just going to share my screen. Can you all see my screen? Right, so I'm here to talk about RRI, which is Responsible Research and Innovation. I'm Aditya, by the way, a PhD candidate in digital media at Georgia Tech. My research focuses on semiconductor physics education and particularly the ethics side of it. And so that's why I thought that the RRI would be a great fit for me to contribute to. So the RRI, as defined by the European Commission, the goal of RRI is to figure out the potential implications of technology, of quantum technology for us in our case, and also to see how we can make research more inclusive and sustainable in the long term. Normally, we end up focusing a lot more on the technical side, and these things often get left out. So my goal, I guess, is to bring that back into the conversation. And there are 5 dimensions of RRI that the European Commission outlines: public engagement, open access, gender, ethics, and science education. I've made a small acronym to help us remember what these 5 things are. I call it G-scope. So that's gender, science education, open access, public engagement, and ethics. So if you just remember the word G-scope, you can probably remember what all 5 of them. And I'm going to quickly go through what each of these 5 are and what we can do about them. So first, I'm going to talk about gender. So gender balance in research and research teams, decision making, and education. These 3 areas, the European Commission really wants us to focus on all of them. And I would actually go so far as to say that we can also go beyond gender and look at race and other kinds of issues as well, which are now surfacing up, especially in the United States, and consider that as part of this goal. Currently, there is a very imbalanced gender ratio. This graph is actually from Britain, but I think the general trend applies everywhere in Europe. But there are far more males who are in STEM fields, and far less females. So there's a big scope over there. And speaking of like education, this pipeline traces all the way back. Like there aren't enough female applicants because there aren't enough role models who are there in the field to inspire them in some ways, and we don't make enough efforts at the educational level early on. So all of these factors, it's a really big societal systemic problem as to why there aren't more women there in the field. But this is definitely one aspect that we can focus on. Then we have science education, which is what we are doing right now as part of the QT4E program. There's also another initiative by the European Commission called the Your Access, which really is meant to help people find a network, find jobs, find funding for doing research in quantum into STEM particularly. And they also have a support for for refugees called the Science for Refugees program. So people who are refugees who are looking to be scientists, they can go onto this network and then they can find opportunities there. So these 2 are part of science education. Then we have open access, which is, I guess, more and more research now is trending towards this. There are 2 very useful resources on this that I found. One of them is called Sherpa Romeo, which basically is a website that lets you see the open access policies of different journals across the world. And then there is DOAJ, which is I forget, but something, a division of open access journals, I think, which lets you, basically it's a database of all the open access journals that are out there that you can publish in and choose to publish in. Now keep in mind, many of these, like this publication requirement comes with like paying a fee to these journals so that they can publish, and not everybody can always afford that. But I guess maybe with additional funding and support from governments worldwide, this can go in that direction. And it also actually ties into the question of public engagement. Like if the public can't access science, then really it's difficult for them to be engaged. So all of these are really connected to each other in many ways. One of the more obvious, I guess, ways and common ways of involving the public is through museums. And so that's a great way of inspiring people to want to learn and to be curious about what these technologies are. Like on the left, there is a museum. In the Museum of Boston had an artifact which lets you see inside IBM Q System 1, which is their quantum computer. And the other one on the right is an exhibition by Samsung that basically uses only quantum dot televisions and basically makes really beautiful landscapes for people to explore, just inspiring the public to get interested into these topics. And finally, I think the most important field to consider are ethics. The European Commission actually has a research practices guideline as part of their a code of conduct and for research integrity, and that generally focuses on research malpractice, falsifying data, plagiarism, all of those things. But it also encourages us to collaborate with these these organizations worldwide, like the National Research Council, UNESCO, WHO, to focus on issues of ethics beyond just research practice. So in the case of quantum technologies, many of the raw materials that are used to make quantum computers are mined in pretty horrible conditions across the world. And the impact, there is also an energy impact of quantum computers, where people are worrying that it can contribute a lot to climate change. And there's also the question of disposing quantum devices. After, if there's no good way of recycling them, then they can build up in landfills and really cause leaching and toxic pollution over that. So these are the basic 5 dimensions of RRI that we can all focus on. And really, I think all of them in some ways connect to the idea of science education. And I guess bringing back to the point that Leon, you mentioned about what level we should be talking about education, I think if we expand the scope of quantum education beyond just the technical aspects and think of these other 4 dimensions, like ethics, public engagement, gender, all of these things, we can start educating students at an early age about them. We can talk about open access. We can talk about how to think ethically about different situations. Even if students don't fully understand the technical aspects of quantum physics, if they can understand how it's going to impact the world, how the world impacts it, all of those things, then that we can start those on early without having to teach your 8-year-old Schrodinger's equation. So yes, that basically concludes my presentation, and I hope it was useful as an introduction to what RRI is. And I hope that we can begin to integrate all of these dimensions as part of our different sub-action plans, whether it's in syllabus design, in the outreach, all of those things. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much, Aditya. This was really something, let's say, eye-opening and something to make us think, food for thought for the next period. Very interesting presentation also from Francesca. Thank you for your contribution. And the Lobster seems like a really, really awesome thing to use in teaching, and we'll be in touch for that as well. So, for closing remarks, first of all, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for taking part. Thank you all for listening to us and eavesdropping into our conversation. Thanks to all the contributors, Tatiana, Marilu, Zeki, Kerry, and also a big thank you to my co-moderator, Elif, who I'm gonna leave now to close out the event.
Thank you so much, Leon. I think it was great to be here with you, and thank you very much for all the contributions during both organizing the program and also the content itself. It was very interesting, and I think it was very helpful. And hopefully in the future, we are going to have advancements in the training of quantum technologies, and also our pilot project will serve its purpose as well. Thank you very much, and it has been a pleasure.
So, thank you once again, and see you at some conference or an event.
See you next time. Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you. See you. Bye.